Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now at high noon on Saturday in college basketball, there's a game between two teams that really need a bounce back win in the Big Ten, with the Illinois Fighting Illini traveling to the Indiana Hoosiers. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Now Illinois 17-8 and 8-6 in the Big Ten this season, and Brad Underwood, he's been really good as the head coach of the Fighting Illini. He's really turned them around when they were really struggling for a while in the Big Ten, but now they're one of the better teams in the conference, and even without Kofi Cockburn this year, they're still having a really solid season. And this year they have wins over UCLA and Texas and Rutgers and Michigan State. Those are their best wins of the season. But they also have losses to Virginia, Missouri, Indiana already at home, and Penn State. And that was a really tough loss against Indiana because of the fact Illinois is usually a tough team to beat at home. But Indiana was able to go on the road and get the win, and they're probably going to want revenge in this game. But Illinois does have a lot of talent, but they have been a bit of an up-and-down team this year. At times, they've looked like a top 15 team, but at other times, they barely look like an NCAA tournament team. And Terrence Shannon, the Texas Tech transfer, is the leading scorer for Illinois. He's averaging 17 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, and 3 assists per game. He's been really solid for Illinois this year. He has been a bit inconsistent like the whole team has been, scoring a lot of points in every single game. But overall, he's been a great scorer and facilitator for Illinois. Matthew Mayer, the Baylor transfer, is averaging 11.7 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game. He's actually been playing better lately. He went through a rough patch earlier in the season for Illinois, but the last few games he's been lighting it up from three. And when he's firing on all cylinders, it makes Illinois tough to beat. Dane Dange is averaging 10.2 points per game and 6 rebounds per game. He also transferred from Baylor, and he's been a much improved player this season in college basketball. Last year for Baylor, he was a reserve player and didn't play too much, but this season he's filled in admirably for Kofi Cockburn, who's now in the NBA. And Dane Dange has had a pretty good season going up against the premier bigs in the Big Ten. Jay Nepps is averaging 10 points per game and 2 rebounds per game. He's been playing much better as of late as well, especially now that Sky Clark has left the Illinois program. He stepped up in Sky Clark's absence, and if he keeps playing at a high level, it definitely raises Illinois' ceiling. Coleman Hawkins is averaging 9.8 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game, and 3.2 assists per game. Coleman Hawkins was a player that a lot of people thought would break out this season and that he could potentially be a first-round draft pick this year, and he has all the tools. He's a solid three-point shooter, and he's a really good player overall on both sides of the ball, but this season he's been very inconsistent, even from the three-point line. And overall, Illinois cannot get consistent play from Coleman Hawkins, but when he's playing at a high level, he is a really solid player, but he has been struggling at times this season. RJ Melendez is averaging 5.7 points per game and 3 rebounds per game. He was another player pinned as a breakout candidate for Illinois, and at times he's played well, but he still has a long way to go to be the player that a lot of Illinois fans think he can be. And Sincere Harris is averaging 3.7 points per game and 2 rebounds per game. He's been a solid freshman for Illinois, just like Jay Nepps has, and again, with Sky Clark out, he's had to step up as well. But Illinois' freshman class, they have a lot of talent, but it's about getting consistent play from all of Illinois' players if they want to reach their potential this season. And on offense, they're scoring 75.2 points per game, and on defense, they're only giving up 65.1 points per game. Illinois is a great team on both sides of the ball. When they're clicking on all cylinders, their offense is one of the best in college basketball, and when they're playing lockdown defense, they actually have one of the better defenses in college basketball. But again, for Illinois, it's about being consistently good all the time on both sides of the ball, and that is really tough to do in the Big Ten, which is a grind. But Illinois has been a bit up and down this season, but they have the players and the talent to be a really good team on both sides of the ball. Now on the Indiana side, they're 18-8 and 9-6 in the Big Ten this season. And Mike Woodson's in his second season as the Indiana head coach, and he's done a really great job bringing Indiana back from one of the bottom teams in the Big Ten the past few years to being one of the better teams in the Big Ten, especially this season. Mike Woodson's done a great job with the Indiana program and getting their players to play really solid basketball, and they're having a really great season. And this season, they have wins over North Carolina. They won at Xavier, they won at Illinois, and they beat Purdue at home. Those are all great wins, but they do have losses to Arizona, Kansas, and at Northwestern, so those are tough losses. And overall, Indiana has a really solid resume, and they've been one of the best teams in the Big Ten this season. And Trace Jackson Davis is a big reason why. He's potentially the only player in college basketball that's even close to Zach Edey for the National Player of the Year race, and he's averaging 20.3 points per game, 11.3 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 3 blocks per game. If he could hold up those numbers, he'd be the first player in college basketball to average 20 points, 10 boards, 3 assists, and 3 blocks in a season since Tim Duncan. He's been playing great basketball this year, and he does so much for Indiana on offense and on defense. He's one of those players that's so irreplaceable for a team. If Trace Jackson Davis is not healthy or not playing at a high level for Indiana, it drastically reduces their ceiling. But Trace Jackson Davis has been everything for Indiana this year, and he's been playing really well well on both sides of the ball, and he's putting up fantastic numbers for the Hoosiers. Jalen Hood-Schifino is averaging 12.6 points per game, 3.9 rebounds per game, and 4.1 assists per game. He's been really solid this year, and he's actually propelled himself to potentially being a first-round draft pick this year. He's been great for Indiana as a freshman, and he's had to step up with the absence of Xavier Johnson, who broke his foot against Kansas. So for Indiana, when Jalen Hood-Schifino is playing really well, it makes Indiana a much better team. Miller Kopp's averaging 7.9 points per game and 2.4 rebounds per game. He's been really solid for Indiana this year. He's playing better than he did last year, and he's shooting really well from three. Indiana still needs him to shoot more often, but as is, he's been a solid player for Indiana. Race Thompson's averaging 7.8 points per game and 5.1 rebounds per game. He's been banged up this season with a knee injury that he suffered against Iowa, but he has been playing better basketball since he's returned from his injury. He's a really solid glue guy for Indiana. Trey Galloway's averaging 7.1 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, and 1.7 assists per game. He's improved for Indiana this year. He's shooting much better from three than he did a year ago, and overall his offensive game's improved this season to go along with his really stellar defense. Tamar Bates is averaging 7 points per game and 1.8 rebounds per game. Tamar Bates was pegged to be a breakout player this season for Indiana, but he hasn't really broken out yet. He's had a few solid games, but he's a very inconsistent player, but he does have a lot of talent. Malik Renew's averaging 6.7 points per game and 3.7 rebounds per game. He's a really solid backup center for Indiana to come in for Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson. He's played really well as a freshman. He's still really inconsistent, but he does have a lot of upside. And Jordan Geronimo is averaging 5.1 points per game and 2.9 rebounds per game. He's had a few injury issues as well, and he's been very inconsistent, but he still has a lot of upside for Indiana, and when he plays really hard, he's a great energy guy off the bench for Indiana. And Indiana this season is averaging 76 points per game on offense, and on defense they're giving up 66.9 points per game. So very similar numbers to Illinois. Indiana's a really good offensive team, and on defense they're actually not playing as well on defense as they did last year, but they're still playing solid on defense. But overall for Indiana, like Illinois, it's about being consistent on both sides of the ball, game in and game out, for Indiana to reach their fullest potential. Now, who do I think is going to get a bounce-back win in the Big Ten? Illinois is coming off a loss at Penn State, and that was a tough loss because Illinois had been playing really good basketball lately, but suffering that loss at Penn State really sets the Illini back. And overall, Illinois has a really talented roster, but yet again, they're just a very inconsistent team on both sides of the ball. Their offense and their defense does not show up sometimes in games. One game, their offense is playing really well, and the next game, their offense is struggling. And then one game, their defense is playing really well, but the next game, it struggles. And overall, their whole entire roster is very up and down. Matthew Mayer and Dane Danger and Terrence Shannon are all really solid players, and Coleman Hawkins, but it's just about them playing at a high level every game. And Brad Underwood is a great coach, and he's done a fantastic job with the Fighting Illini, and he knows that he's got to get better production from all of his players if Illinois is going to reach their highest potential this season. And I think that they're definitely capable of still being one of the best teams in the Big Ten this year and possibly doing special things in March Madness. And they have really great wins this year, so they are capable of going on the road and winning at Indiana, especially because Indiana won at Illinois, and they're going to want revenge in this game. But Indiana, they're a team that's also coming off a loss at Northwestern, and that really slows down the Hoosiers, who had won 8 of their last 9 games. So Indiana's going to be looking to get a bounce-back win as well. Mike Woodson's done a great job this season of improving Indiana and having their players play better basketball this year. Trace Jackson Davis is on a mission, and he's doing everything he possibly can to get Indiana to win games this year. And Jalen Hood-Schifino's been a fantastic freshman for Indiana, and he's been playing much better at home. And that's another thing. This game's at Assembly Hall, and Indiana has only one loss this season at home to Northwestern, and that was a game that Xavier Johnson and Race Thompson were both hurt. And now Race Thompson's back, and possibly Xavier Johnson could be back soon as well. And Indiana's been playing much better basketball as the season's gone along, even though they did lose at Northwestern. And Northwestern's been playing much better as well. So I think that Indiana's going to be really prepared for this game. They're going to want to come back off a loss just like Illinois is. And I think that both teams are going to play really hard in this game for that reason. But I'm going to go with Indiana to beat Illinois 77-74 in this Big Ten battle. I think Illinois can win this game. Their offense and their defense is really capable of slowing down Indiana. And they've won big games on the road this season. And they have the talent to get the job done. Illinois is arguably, along with Indiana, the two most talented teams in the Big Ten. And Brad Underwood has a really solid team that is really capable of winning a lot of big games, and I think that Illinois will not be fazed by the Assembly Hall atmosphere, and they're going to play really hard in this game. But Indiana is at home, and when they're at home, they're one of the toughest teams in college basketball, and I think that Mike Woodson is going to do everything he possibly can to get Indiana back on track after losing to Northwestern, and I think that Trace Jackson Davis is going to have a fantastic game, and I think Jalen Hood-Schifino, he plays much better at home, and overall, a lot of Indiana's players play better at home, like Tamar Bates and Trey Galloway, and I think that Indiana's offense will be be clicking in this game. And even though I think Illinois has a really good offense, I think that Indiana's defense will be able to slow down their offense just enough. And I think this is going to be a really close, hard-fought Big Ten battle. But I'm going to go with Indiana to beat Illinois 77-74 in this Big Ten basketball game. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Indiana or Illinois is going to win this basketball game and why. And I will see you next time.